shift gears here a little bit, Dr. Shams. I want to stick with you. Let's talk about, what the agencies are giving you to work with from the outset. So, what are the agencies' sort of starting fundamental requirements? We've talked about the fact that a lot of this is sort of unfolding. We've talked about working with the agency to move forward. But what are you starting with from your experience, kind of at the ground level?
So I think what we are seeking is a couple of things. One, it really helps to have guidance documents that can educate the sponsor as they prepare their plans for the future. So that is very helpful. But then I think we are looking for a little bit more crisp a sort of a answer on what exactly is the expectation, both on the clinical side and also on the other technical side, let's say manufacturing and quality and all of that stuff. And what that does is it helps us to then really develop a plan, knowing full well what the expectation is. So what is the requirement? I think if we can clarify that, and that can take a couple of iterations depending on the space that you're in. Because if everybody is new to the space, and then it takes a while to come to that conclusion. And there are many examples, in the space. For example, the gene therapy for retinitis, RPE65 mutation in eye disease, that was an ongoing sort of a project, and the requirements, the guidance was clear in the beginning, but the actual requirements sort of morphed into something that then became the final approval endpoint. And so, which was, very helpful because they worked with the agency interactively, and it wasn't easy, I'm sure. But so I think those are the things that in spaces where the agency is very comfortable and we are very comfortable, like the oligonucleotide space for ProQR. Oligonucleotides have been around. Their manufacturing is more established as compared to genes, for example. So that can really help move the ball forward. How comfortable everybody is on the table.
Yeah. Dr. Hunter, would you agree with what Dr. Shams said, and have you seen the fundamental requirements sort of shift, evolve, or snowball over time?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I don't think the fundamental requirements have shifted. I think, the regulatory paradigms and policy have evolved over time. And I think thinking about some of the expedited programs, RMAT is a good example, right? Like the agency is trying to adapt to sort of the changing landscape. And so I think we're just at a point where we need to look at existing regulatory tools and see if they fit our needs, especially those around rare and even ultra rare underserved diseases with high unmet need. And so what are the pathways that exist and how to best leverage them for medical product development? So I don't think the fundamentals have changed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've had conversations with folks in the space and in industry who are responsible for regulatory affairs, who have had, I guess, spirited debates around guidance versus requirements, where they kind of put their stock and faith. So let's talk about that for a minute. It'll be a nice transition into the next segment of our conversation. And Dr. Shams, maybe we'll start with you. What's your perception of guidance versus requirements? What's there more of? What's more important? And kind of give us your sense on that.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I think I think the answer is, for me, is I'm not sure one is more important than the other. I can give you my preference over the years. My preference would be requirement. I think it helps so much in developing ideas and developing your programs and developing your interactions and everything else. If that is clear to me, then I can plan, because we are in the business of spending money, and that can be a big issue. And so that allows us to really be very precise in our forecasting of what this would look like. So I think for my sponsor side, or at least in my experience of me, I probably tip the balance slightly in favor of requirements, but the guidance is what sets the framework, and so it helps me to prepare and not ask stupid questions. And so for me, that's how it sort of lays all out, and we've sort of used that at ProQR quite a bit. Is just trying to understand exactly what the requirement is so we can deliver and not go round and round in circles. And that has allowed us to move programs faster because that requirement was well understood. And so we are moving 2 programs into phase 3 this year, 1 program into phase 3 this year, and that I think plays a role in making that decision.
That's great. Yeah. Dr. Hunter, I want to get your take on that. So from, again, leaning into your FDA days, does what Dr. Shams kind of present there ring right to you, tipping the balance a little bit toward requirements and away from guidance?
Yeah, and I think this is right. Like guidance to me means something very different. I think FDA guidance documents, right, and people either hate them or love them. I mean, they're helpful because they describe the agency's current thinking on a regulatory issue. There are only so many ways the agency can communicate broadly externally about its current thinking on a topic. And the guidance is a useful tool because it's not legally binding on the public or FDA. And when you have the opportunity to comment on a draft guidance, you are able to provide feedback to sort of where that bar should be set. I think people read into words like recommend or strongly recommend. And, from the other side, when I used to write these, like it is a lot of work to try to figure out what is the right place to plant some, softly what sort of current thinking is. But when you think about requirements, you want the agency to maintain flexibility on a case-by-case basis, right? When they put something out, it has to apply to everybody. And so usually you sort of see this balance that is a struggle where you want enough information out there to be useful, yet not so much so that it's binding for many, many sponsors in the same, same development group, but have different case-by-case considerations. And you want to leave room for that. So
yeah,
you want them to be non-binding, not narrow, but useful. So that's the challenge.